the same time, Harry. Late at night after the crowd leaves.
What exactly is Scungili?
Scungili is conch.
Conch shell. Okay.
But it's the actual conch, which is a gigantic snail.
Right.
So it sounds better. Scungili. And then they cut it up.
And they put a little olive oil in
it. You slap it up, you flip it, you rub it down, and then you
don't even know it's a snail.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
You go to get conch fritters. You go down to Florida, you go to the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. Conch fritters are the big thing, and they just chop it up. Them. Yeah, they deep fry it, and you bread it. You can bread and fry anything, Harry. As you know.
Sure.
Texas knows that better than anybody. They deep fry everything. Yes,
we have Mark Boyle on the phone. We efforted the Zoom, and for whatever reason,
did he lose his internet in Naptown as well, like everybody seems to be doing this week?
I think that's what happened. Yep.
Let's go to the voice of your Indiana Pacers, the great Mark Boyle, who joins us. Mark, how are you, man?
I'm well, Tony. How are you?
Not as good as you, man. I don't know. Are you doing well? Now, you're not going to be able to go to the bubble, so you're going to have to be doing – will you be doing radio calls? Those are allowed or no?
Yeah, we're doing them from our studio, or one of our studios in the field house downtown. So as far as I know, every team is doing both radio and television.
But in the television feeds, obviously, most of them will be on national TV. TNT, for example, has both games tonight and the restart. And so you now know the full schedule. And the big question is, you got the Sixers on Saturday night, but the big question is the big man, Domantas Sabonis, he's not going to play, right?
He's not going to play for sure in the first X number of games. I don't know what X is, but certainly not Saturday, almost certainly not Monday or Tuesday. Beyond that, it's up in the air. He left the team about a week ago and went out to see a doctor in Los Angeles that he dealt with before. He has plantar fasciitis and hasn't really been able to do much of anything. So we know for sure that he'll miss the first few, but beyond that, nobody seems to know.
Well, one thing's for sure, though, that Victor Oladipo is good to go, right? Because I know there's been some questions about him throughout this season and really for quite some time as far as injuries go.
That's not for sure. I spoke to Nate McMillan this morning in Orlando, and he said they would decide that when they needed to. And that's the way they've been operating with him. It's a day-to-day thing. So far, he's been able to play every day. He participated in all 3 scrimmages. So unless there's a setback, I would expect him to play. But Nate said this morning the team is not committed yet. They're going to make that decision when they need to.
Mark Boyle, the voice of the Indiana Pacers. You know, we were talking just before you came on, Mark, about what a great basketball city and what a great basketball state Indiana is. And I've been fortunate enough to be there a whole bunch of times, going back to Market Square Arena. And now you mentioned the building that they have. And I remember being there for the finals in 2000 with the Lakers and Pacers. What a great series that was. But now what's the mood in Indiana, in Indianapolis specifically, about the Pacers going into this reboot of the season and playoff hopes?
On a general level, I think, Tony, it's fair to say that everybody's excited. It's been over 4 months since the last game. And this has been a team that has captivated fans here because they played all but 13 games without Oladipo, and they're still 13 games over 500. I don't think anybody here is under the illusion that they're a championship contender, although if they had all of their guys healthy, I think they could do some damage. They're just excited that basketball is starting up again, and I think they're curious to see how the Pacers will fare in this really rather unusual circumstance.
Yeah, the thing to me that makes this team so dangerous, and they'll be playing the Sixers this weekend, is the fact that, Oladipo gets a lot of the attention as far as name recognition, but they spread the ball around so well. They got 7 guys averaging double figures, and 2 other players are averaging 8 and 9 points per game. So they can score from all over the court.
They've been really good even without Oladipo. In fact, with him they're 7-6, and without him they're 12 games over 500. So they have been better without him than with him, which is not to suggest they're better off without him. You know how numbers sometimes don't tell the story. But there has been an adjustment period because not only has he been out for the better part of a year plus, but they didn't restructure their team this past offseason. They kept their key guys, but almost half of the team is comprised of new guys, and some of those guys are in the rotation. And so it's been a learning process for all concerned. They're excited about where they're headed, but all of this might not really come to fruition until next season when everybody should be healthy. For now, they're trying to do the best they can. I don't know how well they'll do because we don't know for sure who's going to be available. But based on what we've seen over the past with this group, I'm sure they'll be at least competitive.
Mark Boyle, the voice of the Indiana Pacers. And Mark, I'm sure you've done games without being at the facility. Most people that I know have from a monitor. How much harder is it? Because are you going to have multiple views on a monitor, or are you just going to see what the fans at home see from the TV feed?
We have multiple monitors, 4 different monitors, and there will be something different on each monitor. So we will have different ways to look at the court. It can be done. And like you said, most guys who have been around as long as I have done it, at least on a limited basis. It's not as easy, but it can be done. The real problem with not being at the facility is not calling the game itself, although that is a challenge. It's the way that the environment and the fans kind of contribute to your energy as a broadcaster. It's a missed opportunity in terms of being able to network with players, coaches, writers, broadcasters before the game, where you can pick up a lot of useful information. So all of that is gone. As far as actually calling the game, though, it is different. It is more challenging. But let's face it, it does take skill. But this isn't exactly brain surgery, so I'm pretty sure we could pull it off without too much trouble.
Hey, Mark, what do you think about this matchup right to start things out with the Sixers? Obviously, the two teams neck and neck in the standings. Pretty important game. Sixers appear to be making some adjustments with their lineup, with Shake Milton handling the point, moving Ben Simmons down to the 4. What are your thoughts on this first game?
Well, it is an interesting matchup. It's not as important as it would be if there were actual home court advantage at stake, because when we get to the playoffs, everyone's still going to be playing in those 3 facilities in Orlando. So home court really doesn't exist, which to a degree I think negates the importance of the matchup, although not necessarily. There are things to be played for in terms of who you'll play in the first round.
Right.
And the Pacers have won 2 of the 3 games so far, so this would be a tiebreaker clinch for them if they can win on Saturday. And I think if you went around the league and asked people who do this for a living or watch it on a regular basis, you would find this consensus. The Sixers are probably the one wild card X-factor team. It tells you how talented they are, that they're 13 games over 500, and generally speaking, they've been considered underachievers. They're really good and really talented. If Embiid is healthy, and if moving Simmons to the 4 and getting another guard onto the floor and maybe getting a little bit better productivity in terms of having more shooting out there, if that turns the corner for them, then they're a real dangerous team. I don't see them being the equal of Milwaukee necessarily, but if they have their act together, they would be capable of giving Milwaukee a run. Maybe Boston could, maybe Toronto could. I put the Sixers in that class, too, if they have their act together. And although this doesn't come into play in this 8-game run, I would be really curious to delve into this a little bit further, because it speaks to me on some level of dysfunction, but I'm not there, so I don't know. I don't understand how you can have such a great home record and such an atrocious road record when you have people and players that good. That tells you something. I don't know exactly what it is, but maybe it explains why they're not doing as well as we thought they might.
Yeah, Sixers are 29-2 at home.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, I mean, really, that goes out the window because nobody's home in the bubble.
Right.
And so what do you see?
So, to some degree, this might work to their advantage, although nobody, I don't think, sees being in the bubble as an advantage. But they don't have to go on the road, where by their standards, generally teams that can go 29-2 at home are winning at minimum half their road games.
Right.
But coming into this restart, they'd lost 10 of their last 11 road games, which to me is inexplicable.
Well, if they lose the first game, they can say, we're just not used to playing on the road in an empty building in a bubble. And then Joel Embiid will say, my ankle is sore. And obviously Brett Brown here in Philly is a lot of people have been down on him the last couple of years. Obviously, his first couple of years here, he had none of the pieces. He was basically asked to just go out there and try to coach a team that nobody
like a
knew.
G League team
That the ownership and the general manager wanted to lose and tank and the whole bit that we've been through. But the bottom line is the excuses are running out. I know Al Horford now, he's out there taking threes, and there's a lot of confusion about why he doesn't fit on the floor at the same time with Embiid. But there's no doubt that if the Sixers underperform, I think Brett Brown's got to be on the hot seat.
Well, I don't really know the dynamic there, and I don't know what management thinks of him. I think he does a decent job myself, but who am I to say? I'm not there every day. And if they are underachieving, then it's not just one reason. It's got to be on the players and the coach, I would guess. But I think he's generally well thought of around the league. But in a league where coaches are fired with some regularity, although less so than in some of the other sports, if you don't win, especially when you have a roster that talent, at the very least there's going to be speculation, I would assume.
Yeah, and I'm not a coach killer. I haven't been calling for a scalp. The fan, you know how fans are. One bad game, and it's like, oh, the coach, run this guy out.
One bad game, one bad possession.
No, Paul, you're right about that. See, you have been to Philly, Mark. You know how the fans are. Like when Embiid just stands outside and starts shooting threes, and people say, get in the damn paint. That's what you expect because, I'm an older guy. You're an older guy. We grew up in the era when big guys dominated the glass and the paint. Now everybody wants to shoot threes no matter how big you are.
You know what reminds me, going back not that many years, when the big guys first started shooting threes, and I'm not going back to the days, but in the more recent era, when the Pacers would play the Hawks, every time Josh Smith would take that ball at the arc and start heaving up threes, the bench would be rejoicing. Not their bench. Our bench. This guy was a really talented player, but for whatever reason, now Embiid doesn't go out there like Josh Smith used to, but still, why he ever shoots a three is beyond me.
Exactly right. Well, Mark, we're all happy to be back. The gamblers are happy. Everybody wants to know that. What is the line on that game? Do you know, Harry? I know the lines for tonight's game, and I know you got interesting 2 games tonight, Mark. When you look at the Pelicans, obviously are 3-point favorites, despite the Jazz having a better record, and then the Lakers and Clippers, and as those 2 teams have played 3 times, the Lakers have only won 1 of 3, and so we know that they match up pretty well, and the Lakers are 4.5-point favorites. We're not really doing a gambling
5.5.
Is it 5.5 now?
Yeah.
And so obviously the Lakers are favored, and the Pelicans are going to be favored tonight, and you look at the West, and that's a big logjam down there from Memphis all the way up to Sacramento and the Pelicans. There's so many teams within 3.5 games behind the 8 seed over there. That's really where the big fight's going to be, because the Eastern Conference, let's be honest, the bottom feeders in the Eastern Conference aren't projected to make much noise. In fact, most of them don't even want to be there, it seems.
Right.
Yeah, I would think the West. Well, the West has been the more interesting conference for quite a while now, and that's not to say that the East hasn't had its moments. They have won championships. But more good teams are in the West, the same as it's been for the last, I don't even know, a long time. Hey, you mentioned gamblers being glad. I shouldn't have been surprised to see this, but I was. There's an over-under on how many players will take a knee during the anthem.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is. What is the over-under? Now, is that on individual teams or the entire league?
No, there was an over-under for each game, and I think one of them was either 3.5 or 4.5. I don't remember what they were. I was just startled to see it, and then I realized, wait a minute. Why are you startled to see that? You can bet on anything now.
Exactly, and there are people. We got 2 guys here. They've been betting on ping pong in Russia, and I'm not a big gambling guy, but people have been desperate. They're betting on the
Ukrainian table tennis. Get it right. It's Ukrainian table tennis.
KBO, everything they could bet on. They were betting on turtle races at bars in Santa Monica, California.
Well,
man.
You can bet on anything, and those are just some examples.
Exactly.
Hey, Mark, can you give us some insight or anything on this apparent feud between Pacers assistant coach Dan Burke and Joel Embiid? I'm reading quotes here from Burke. He's saying, I hate that team. In an interview, he's saying, I really wanted to win that game. I think Embiid gets away with a bunch of crap the league ignores, and it would have been a good one to just walk away from with a win. So apparently there's a little animosity between one of the coaches and Joel.
Wow.
That's interesting, and that's the first I've heard of it. I've known Dan Burke he's been with the Pacers for 23 years as an assistant coach, and I'm sure that he holds some sort of a record in that as an assistant coach, he has survived, he came with Bird, and then he worked for Isaiah Thomas and Jim O'Brien and Frank Vogel and Nate. So he survived 5 coaching changes. That just doesn't happen.
Wow.
And he's very well thought of. He's an extremely good assistant coach. He knows what he's talking about. The players here revere him.
So if there's a bench clearing like we saw in baseball the other night with the Dodgers and Astros, will they socially distance if words are exchanged between Embiid and your assistant coach?
Well, I can tell you this. Dan is a very bright guy, and if the bench is clear, there's no way he's going after Embiid.
Exactly right. Exactly. Yep, smart man.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Hey, Mark, appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for coming on. We're ready. We're all excited. We're all excited, Mark. The basketball is back. I'm sure you are, too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you speak for all of us. We're all excited about it, and so far so good with the bubble and the containment and all of that. And I think with each passing day, we become even a little bit more confident and excited. So we're all looking forward to it, and I appreciate the invitation. I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.
Wait, Ryan Rothstein, our producer, has a question.
Baby.
Yeah, so it's not.
Baby. He got it.
Yeah, there we go. I was going to set it up a little bit. Yeah, but we had some audio.
How many hum babies he got it? Will you have it? What's the over/under on that on the first game?
Exactly.
Well, we won't actually have any because those are the trademark of my color guy, Slick Leonard, and he's 88 years old.
Yes.
And so he won't be joining us. We'll have him on at halftime, pregame, and the postgame, but we didn't think it was a good idea to bring him downtown. Our arena's under construction. He's in that danger zone at 88 years old. So he'll be participating, but sadly the Boom Babies will be absent.
Oh, man. Everybody loves Slick Leonard. I mean, he's one of the legends of the game, in broadcasting and on the floor. Hey, Mark, good stuff.
Let me give you one quick Slick story. You mentioned Brett Brown being on the hot seat. I know we're talking about coaches, and Slick won 3 ABA championships. And this is perhaps my all-time favorite Slick is. When I was new, he was teaching me about the league, and I asked him how important the coach was, and he told me the coach is important. But really, you can't win without players. So players are more important than the coach. Or as he told me that day, I ain't never yet seen a jockey carry a horse across the finish line.
Exactly right.
That's great.
That's why he's the greatest. Hey, Mark, again, thank you very much. And give me one more Boom Baby. Come on, one more over there now.
Here we go.
Well, I feel as though I'm plagiarizing. That's my guy.
No, we have it. We have him recorded. We have all the Slick Leonard Boom Babies and all of his.
Baby. He got it.
There it is.
I love that.
Phenomenal.
There you go.
Phenomenal. Now, you don't even try. Can you do it since he's not going to be there? You got to at least do one or two.
As an homage.
As an homage to Slick.
I can do it. It's not really all that challenging. Who can't say Boom Baby? But it's out of respect. It's out of respect. You know, I just can't. I can't go there. That's his thing.
All right.
It would be like trying to steal his wife. I wouldn't do that.
Mark, again, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate the time.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
There he is, Mark Boyle. Some Indiana wants me.